Hi, welcome to my channel. My name's Mariah and I'm the owner of Wealthy Boss. Today I put together a yoga recovery specifically to follow up a barre class. Now, you can use this anytime you want. You can use it to recover from any type of lower body workout in particular. We're going to be focusing on lengthening into the glutes and piriformis, inner hips, inner thighs, outer thighs, quads, and hamstrings. Also a little bit of side body because a lot of the barre classes do a lot of oblique work. At least if you take my barre classes, you do a lot of standing side body work to work into the muscles on the obliques. So you may choose to have a block if you'd like. Otherwise, let's get started. So we're going to start with a couple of standing balance poses that incorporate some beautiful stretching into those areas where we need it. And then we'll head down onto the ground for stretching. Sounds good? So starting with our extended hand to big toe pose, we're going to come to the middle of our mat, checking in with those postural points, and then draw the right knee in towards the chest. We'll stay here just a moment, hugging that knee inward. And then taking the right fingertips into peace fingers, you can grab hold of your big toe. Now this is the traditional way to do it. I'm kind of weird about this. You know, we all have our little quirks. To me, having my fingers around my big toe just feels funny. I don't like it. So instead, I'm going to take my hand to the outside of that foot so that I can still maintain the integrity of that shoulder joint while getting this nice stretch. So we start to lengthen into that leg if we haven't done so already. Drawing that right hip back, we're trying to find that posture again, that nice straight dancer's posture that we worked so hard on during our barre class. And when you're ready, whether your fingers are holding on to that toe or your whole hand is on the outside of the foot, we're going to start to guide that foot over towards the right. So opening into the inner thigh, releasing from all those plies we just did. Coming up in the standing leg, the muscles in the feet, the calves, the quads. Pulling the belly muscles in to help us stay lifted and balanced. And then taking that leg back towards center. From here, we're going to cross so that the opposite hand holds onto that foot, the outside of that foot, as you now take the right hand back towards the wall behind you. If you feel safe and balanced here, feel free to take the gaze with you. That's going to increase the balance challenge just a little bit. So still thinking tall thoughts in that standing leg. This is so good for lengthening into your IT band. Good. Now releasing, unwinding back towards center. Let's hug that knee in again, so bending at the knee. And normally we would do a little leg lift here, but since we've already worked abdominals in probably whatever barre class you already took, we're just going to release out of that. And we'll take it over to the other side. So starting either two peace fingers hooked around the big toe or hand to the outside of the left foot, starting to lengthen that leg. And then as soon as you start to get that length, we want to remind ourselves to come back into that dancer's posture. And it's okay if that leg never fully lengthens, especially if you just worked a lot of like bridging and hamstring work. That can make your hamstrings pretty tight. We want to think more so about straightening on our posture than straightening the leg. The leg will come over time, but we always want to maintain that integrity of our spine. And then when you're ready, you're going to start to take that leg out to the left. Now resist the temptation to kind of crumple down here, and I want you to lift tall. Just like a tree spreading its branches, we ground down first, and that gives us more lift, more stability to spread outward. It's true literally and metaphorically. The more we become grounded, secure in the essentials of who we are, the more we're able to experiment and take risks. Good. Now switching the grip now, we're going to try to come back towards the center so we can rotate the opposite hand now. Finding this great twist. Maybe your gaze comes back towards that backhand, or maybe not if you're feeling a little precarious. Remember, we're focusing on the essentials. We've got to feel grounded and centered before we go on to take those risks. And releasing back towards the midline now. Let's hug that knee in, squeeze, 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 and release down. Good. Going back to the right side now. So the weight shifts into the left leg. Right leg is going to bend behind us as we come into our dancer's pose so that we can get a little bit of a stretch into the quads and hip flexors, and then release in the back as well. So I'm going to stand sideways to you for a moment so you can kind of watch this. The goal here is we want to create a lot of length between the heel and the back. So it's more of a back bend than a quad stretch, but we want to think about lifting the heart. And then the hand comes along the inside, so not the outside, but the inside of that sole of the foot. And then before we even think about starting to tilt forward, we want to kick back. So create more space, like your heel is trying to move away from the rest of your body. And then when you feel secure, then you start to tilt forward a little or a lot, just based on how secure you're feeling. Your front fingertips are in line with your eyebrow the whole time. Releasing in the back, releasing in the hips, getting a little bit of length here in your quadriceps, the front of your thighs. And then let's ease our way, carefully come back up, and gracefully, or not so gracefully, go ahead and set that foot down. We'll take it over to the other side. So remember, hand comes to the inside, so palm faces away from you. And then it's kicking back away from the body before you start to add that tilt. Fingertips reach forward, maintain that steady line with the eyebrows. Now, how's your breathing? We want to make sure in our tricky poses that we resist the urge to hold our breath and instead breathe even deeper. This is when your body needs oxygen and fuel the most. Couple more deep breaths here. And it's your choice if you choose to do the traditional Ujjayi breath in and out through the nose, or if you're just looking for a little bit of a cool down after barre class, just whatever comes naturally to you is fine. Good, and releasing out of that. Good, we've got one more standing balance pose on tap before we come down onto the ground. This is our triangle pose. So you want to line up so that your front foot is lining up with heel of the back foot, and that back foot is turned out to parallel of the front edge of your mat. Good. We're going to reach towards the front of the room. And then hand comes to shin. You can have a block here as well if you want to make that ground a little bit closer to you. The goal here is to open up into the side body, to stretch after any contraction you've done from side body work, oblique work. So the goal here is more to open up through the side body than to get your hand low down onto the shin. So I'd rather you have your hand higher up and then rotate that heart and that top hip a little further open. You can even take your top arm and extend those fingertips over if you had a reason to do that. Breathing into it. Good. And then let's gently make our way back up. And we'll just swivel the feet so that we can reposition over to the other side. So reach, grow long first, and then reach down for that leg or the ground or a block. Think about opening that heart, rotating top shoulder and hip so that they're stacked over bottom shoulder and hip. Maybe fingertips extend overhead. Relax the shoulder, please. Breathing into the rib cage. And then let's gently press up. You can bend a little bit into that knee as you do that. Excellent. So coming down onto the ground now, we have quite a series ahead of us for our piriformis. So one of our 6 external rotators that tends to get pretty utilized in barre classes. So if any point, these are pretty intense, if at any point they feel unright for your knees, then you can just come into a simple easy pose, a simple cross-legged pose, and still get some great benefit from that. We're going to start with our burning logs pose. So the goal is to keep both sits bones on the ground as we take our shins parallel, stacked one on top of the other. Ankle to shin, shin to ankle, a little flex in the foot will help to protect the knee. But again, if this doesn't feel nice to your knees or you find that one of your sits bones is having to lift up off the ground to accommodate this, just come into a simple cross-legged pose for both this and the next pose as well. So we're thinking nice tall thoughts in the spine. We don't want to get our nose to the ground if that means having to compromise and round in the upper back. We'd rather have a nice long back. But if we need a little bit more and we have that opening, we could take those arms in front of us, and with a long back, heart still lifts forward, we could start to hinge forward at the hips to increase the sensation in the piriformis, the back of the booty. Breathing into it, just waiting for that invitation from your body to go deeper in when it tells you that it's time. And then gently lifting up, we're going to unwind, take it over to the other side. Now, even if you are in Sukhasana, easy pose, and you just had your legs crossed like this, you just want to switch so that the opposite leg is crossed on top. We all have a tendency to favor one when we are sitting cross-legged. We want to make sure we work equally so that we're balanced. So remember, we find that length in the spine, thinking about creating a super tall spine and then hinging forward from the hips as opposed to rounding. And you may not even need to. This is such an intense pose, particularly if you're feeling pretty tight after a barre class or any other lower body workout. Then you may not need to be going very far to get a really good benefit from this. Good. Now from here, we're actually going to move. We're going to stay on the same side as we move into our Gomukhasana, our cow face pose. And then don't worry, we'll be sure to hit it on the other side as well. We'll just come into that for the second portion. So from here, this is taking it even a little bit further. So again, easy pose is an option, just simple cross-legged. Or you can start to stack those knees on top of each other. Again, both sits bones remain on the ground as you draw the heels in towards the hips. Maybe you stay right here. Maybe you interlace fingers behind your back and start to tilt forward. Do be careful to keep a nice long neck here so you're not compressing into the cervical vertebrae. Sits bones anchor firmly into the earth. Releasing, imagining those muscles growing longer, more pliable. And then let's gently unwind those arms. Maybe press yourself up using your arms so that you can make your way over to Gomukhasana on the other side. Stacking knees. Heels come as close in towards hips as they will. Now crossing, interlacing arms the opposite direction now. And fold it forward. And if that doesn't feel nice in your shoulders or your fingers don't touch, just take your hands down in front of you, please. Good. Sitting up from there. We're going to shift forward, coming into our pigeon pose. So with our pigeon, the more parallel we take that shin to the front edge of the mat, the more intense of a feeling we're going to get. Depending on how tight you are, you might want to take the heel a little bit closer in towards the hip. Hips are squared, shoulders are squared, spine is long as you start to melt your body forward. Really consciously releasing those muscles around the hips, really like to grip and hold on. So we want to think about almost easing into a hot bath. We're being so mindful. We're being so sensitive to those hips. But we're also guiding them into that state of relaxation, just giving them permission to open up, relax, repair. Anytime you notice your body start to tense or grip up, just imagine yourself melting into the ground, becoming almost a puddle here. Good. From here, pressing your way up into long arms. You're going to reach behind, and if it's available to you, you're going to grab hold of that foot behind you. Now you can stay here, and you can either start to work the hand on top of the foot so that you're pulling those toes in towards your glutes to get a deep release in the quads, or it might feel more comfortable to hook that foot into the elbow for a mermaid prep. Or it might feel most comfortable just to leave the leg on the ground. Totally up to you, but this is starting to get into the quadricep of that opposite leg. How's that breath? Let it be silky smooth. And then gently setting that leg down if you have the knee bent. We're going to rock over onto that hip and get set up for the other side. So coming into our pigeon. Good. So it's good to notice if one side is different than the other. Notice that can be telling if one is doing more work than the other. If so, it may be a good idea to introduce a little bit more unilateral movement into your workouts, whether that's bar workout or other lower body workout, meaning that you work the legs one at a time so that they have to equally pull their weight. Or if you find you are weaker in one leg, you could always add more time or more reps into that leg to help balance out. Good. Now pressing up into long arms. If you bent into the one knee on the other side, let's go ahead and take that. Again, option to turn your palm down and start to draw the top, pressing the top of the foot, draw the heel in towards the glute. Or for me, it's a little bit more accessible to tuck my foot into my crook of my elbow. Moving into mermaid prep. And then releasing out of that, please. Make your way up to seated. We're going to take a wide leg forward fold. So the name of the game here is lengthening in the spine. Lengthen, lengthen, lengthen. So you almost want to feel like you're trying to lift the crown of your head towards the wall in front of you. So you're trying to get that head to touch the wall as opposed to getting the nose to touch the floor. That's going to facilitate a deeper stretch into the hamstrings and help protect your back as well. So releasing into those inner thighs. Find a couple more deep restorative breaths here. Now press yourself into upright. We're going to, our last movement here, we're going to end in frog. And this one can be a little bit tricky and a little bit intense, especially if you're feeling tight in the inner thighs. So we want to think about taking our ankles wider than the knees. Make sure your knees are protected on the mat. You might even want to put a little cushion underneath your knees or kind of roll your mat in half lengthwise to help protect the knees. And then from here, you're going to kind of start to play with the positioning of the pelvis. So you want to feel a nice intense stretch. To feel a little bit more, you would send the pelvis more towards the back edge of the mat. If you want a little bit less, you'd shift your weight forward a little bit. So sinking into this is so good for you. We always want to make sure that we counterbalance the effort the control, the contraction of muscles with the lengthening, the release, and the recovery of them. This is where the true magic happens. This is where yin meets yang. Good. And then gently, I've never found a graceful way to get out of this, but we're just going to carefully come out of this. Find a quick child's pose here. And press on up. Well, I sure hope you feel better. I am so glad that you joined me for this post-barre workout recovery yoga routine. Of course, you can do this routine anytime on its own, anytime you're just feeling like you need a little bit of extra length. I do hope you'll still consider subscribing, and if you enjoyed this routine, would you just hit that like button for me? That would mean the world to me, and it would be a great way to let me know that you want me to keep creating these videos for you. So thank you so much, and I'll catch you next time. Namaste.